You canny shove your granny off a bus, everybody. Welcome to the Football Ramble. England gubbed Scotland and Jürgen Klinsmann got a win. It's Wednesday, 13th of September. I'm Marcus Speller.
I'm Andy Russell.
I'm Tim Campbell.
I'm Vish Antaraja.
Welcome one and all to the Football Ramble. Pace Rudolph there with the line from the Patreon. Thank you very much, Pace. We haven't started with an easy.
No.
Because we're going to do one now. Easy! Easy!
Come on, Andy.
Easy. Yeah.
I live too close to Scotland to do this.
It's not safe.
There's a wall, though. You're fine.
I know, I was going to say, old St. Andrews over there.
Yeah.
Flipping heck. It was easy peasy for old England last night. They beat Scotland 3-1.
I would go as far to say, Marcus, that it might even have been lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
The scoreline flattered Scotland a bit, Vish.
I think it did. I think people's view of the glory of Great Britain flatters Scotland as well, if we're being entirely honest.
What a start there.
Wow.
What a
lovely week we're going to have.
How dare they boo their own national anthem,
I like
Vish?
it. I like Scotland, I should say this.
Oh, stop it.
Some of my best friends are Scottish.
Yeah.
Are
you all right?
I think I'm fine, yeah. I was actually going into this game a little bit wary because of how well they've been in the qualifiers. And England, it's the kind of game that England tied themselves in knots about.
I'd say it was the opposite.
Really?
And I think I think the Scotland
Well, I
approached
mean,
this wrong.
but bear in mind how the game at the Euros panned out. It's the kind of game that England overthink, even in a non-competitive environment, especially off the back of that Ukraine victory. And it was interesting hearing Jude Bellingham. We'll obviously talk more about him later. But I love the fact that at the end of the game, he was like, after the performance in Ukraine, he was talking about himself personally. He was like, I wanted to put in a performance here.
Yeah, so my point there, obviously, it was the 150th anniversary game against England versus Scotland, or Scotland versus England, should we say? Oldest fixture in the world, which
Still.
yeah, we're still going.
That's good.
Which is an amazing thing, by the way. But the reason why I think Scotland actually approached this game a little sort of incorrectly, if you like, is because Scotland have got such a great energy and such a great form going into this match, because they've been winning games which they can win, plus the Spain game. That's the sort of the big result there. But they've been putting away the games. You look at them in the Nations League, you know, they will be the only British nation in the top tier of the Nations League next time that wonderful tournament comes round. But they've been beaten Ireland. They've beaten, it was Ukraine, I think. They put away Georgia, Cyprus, these teams. Norway as well, which is a good win. And these are great wins, by the way. This is no mean feat. And then obviously they beat Spain. When they come into the game against England, I think, like the Euros, they thought, let's go toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
Let's play the high line, let's do all this, and let's have it. And I thought that was totally wrong. Because if you go toe-to-toe with a clearly better side, that's what's going to happen. Whereas against Spain, they conceded possession, they played it very, very well. And whereas I think with this one, they didn't want to do that, and they got very much punished.
To be fair to Scotland, though, I think if there's ever a time in which to test yourself in that style of play, if you're thinking about moving towards it in the future, it's a game like this, right? It's a game where you're pumped up.
But you're not as good. Well, and all this idea of, we've got to close the gap and so on, that'll take another generation.
At least.
At least.
You can't force yourself to play.
Totally.
In that money,
That's what I mean. You can't sort of sign play. It's not club football, and so that's why I thought they went about it in completely the wrong way.
It's very interesting how I think the crowd really, really quieted down after a while, didn't it? And that's I think it was because it wasn't just the scoreline; it was the manner of how England got to the scoreline. They were in so much control.
Well, Souness said it as well. You know, even if John McGinn puts that header in, even if Scotland had got out there with a 2-2. It would have been a smash and grab job, and of course, blimey hell, they would have enjoyed it. But it was so kind of one-sided for me that the whole time. And I think if the game had actually been played at Wembley, I think you'd have seen a better Scottish performance. Because I think Bellingham said when they booed the anthem and so on, it was like, oh right, like that is it. That is it.
Well, it was very interesting seeing, like, obviously he rose to that. Declan Rice grinning from ear to ear as that was happening. It's like it's really brilliant to see England players who are this confident.
Yeah,
just in general.
I totally agree. Speaking as an England fan who always fears the worst, right down to the fact that as soon as Bellingham set up Harry Kane, my thought went to him getting injured a month before the Euros.
Yeah.
Seeing players on the field do exactly what Jim says, just stick their chest out a bit, play with a bit of confidence, play with a bit of swagger. Don't, that own goal from Harry Maguire. I think other two, and there was certainly Scotland pressure after that. They just rode it. They just calmed it down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But that
just
kind
took charge again.
That kind of is the thing for Bellingham. This game was built for him because not only is he a player who's almost too brilliant to put into words, certainly in an English context, but he's someone who relishes this sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And you really saw that. He doesn't just like to be the best player on the pitch. He likes to own the occasion.
Oh, totally.
Imagine him at a
He
roast.
really did that.
Well, if he was James Maddison,
Bring his own knife.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that celebration as well, which is now his trademark celebration. It sums it up.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. We got an email.
Can we just fathom that for a second? I know we'll probably go on about it every time he does it, but it's now his trademark from when he started doing it as a match winner for Real Madrid.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Every time that we should say that every time we bring it up.
Real
It's
Madrid and
remarkable.
England's Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
And I think really, if there's a take home from this, it's that Gareth Southgate has been copying Carlo Ancelotti's homework, hasn't he?
You'd hope so.
Yeah.
On that celebration, I've got an email from Jack French who said Jude Bellingham shouting "Vamos" after scoring for England. This isn't the Brexit Luke Moore voted for. Now, Luke's not here to defend himself, so ha ha ha. Quite frankly, no. Bellingham was superb. There's no two ways about that. And we've known this for a while. Didn't Birmingham City retire one of the numbers?
They
Well,
did.
22.
Or was that not?
The
that
reason
was-
for that is has been massively overstated. Essentially, them selling him to Dortmund effectively saved the club, as
Yes.
I understand it, because they were in a pretty difficult financial straits. So that was the reasoning for that.
And also, it's the way he played it. Even though he was a kid, he
Yeah,
could
yeah,
he could have walked for nothing, creamed off a load more money
Yeah.
for himself. He signed his first professional contract there so they could sell him.
Yeah, and-
so
and-
people have sometimes
but the-
willfully misunderstood that, I
But,
think.
indeed, it's good to add the much needed colour to that. But the reason why I bring that up is because right from the off, Bellingham has been destined for the top of the game. And this is not a kind of he's the new such and such, or new Zidane and so on. No, he's Jude Bellingham, for crying out loud. And he is. It's just so wonderful to see a player who was so highly rated right from the off is already going about fulfilling that potential.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is almost
It's
impossible
phenomenal.
to do in any era of sport, really. If you think of like Cristiano Ronaldo or LeBron James, to be rated since you're a young teenager, and then not only to meet that expectation, but absolutely fly past it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And the way
It never
The way he
happens.
speaks in the media as well. It's
Yeah.
just-
He's ready for it, isn't he? He's ready to be a superstar.
Especially, or just on Annie's point, especially to do that in the middle of the park where you get so many knocks simply by playing the game, not necessarily people even trying to take you out, just by
Yeah.
going about your business normally.
You're thinking about the injury again, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
But don't worry with it.
Maybe we should play him if Real Madrid played him further forward and a little bit out to the left, so he
Yeah.
was always offside.
Yeah.
I think,
We should be okay.
So like 10 yards off the pitch, just to be on
Yeah.
the safe side.
I mean,
Just-
already wears a lot of
but in
strapping.
a comfy chair as well.
I think this game.
Lumbar support.
I think this may be where Southgate's found the midfield that he perhaps would want to go with. Now, Southgate's been criticised for handbrake on and all this kind of stuff. I would say to that, well, look at the amount of goals England's got. I mean, was the handbrake on against North Macedonia when England beat them? So, I actually think Southgate kind of not always gets it right, but more often than not knows when to kind of go right. Nice and calm, and let's let them have it. But this, you had Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. Now, Calvin Phillips was saying he hasn't played much football and blah 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 blah. But he was good.
fantastic.
He was great.
Really good.
So that
Yeah.
does justify. Obviously, different
Yeah.
with Maguire. We'll come on
to that.
We will. But Rice is a starter. Very much in there. With England, you have the goalkeeper, Pickford or Ramsdale. Take your choice. It'd probably be Pickford. You've got your back four. Obvious who's the right back. John Stone's one of the centre halves. Another centre half, probably Gay maybe, or someone again. A couple of options there. Left back, Shaw or Chilwell. Rice in front. Bellingham in that midfield. Kane and Saka. It'll probably be. It's those two positions. Now I understand one position. Who you pick in that midfield does change the dynamic, because if you pick Calvin Phillips or Phil Foden, it changes it. But this seems to be the chat now. We're honing in on England. Who do you play in there?
Well, a performance like this really helps Southgate because if he wants to, you'd say it's a fairly cautious lineup when you have Rice and Phillips in it. But if you can put Bellingham in front, all you have to do as a football coach is create the best possible situation for your best players to do their stuff.
Absolutely, Andy.
And that's
you
exactly
can't,
what's
but you can't
happening there.
People saying Phil Foden is generational talent. I get that. So is Jude Bellingham. can you play them both in that midfield? I think people would like to see that.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's horses for courses, right? Essentially,
Indeed, Jim.
And
Indeed.
I think this is the lineup against a big team. If you go deep in a tournament and you've got a France or a Spain or whoever, that midfield is the one that you use because, as you say, Jude Bellingham is not just such a sort of creative force. He's also dominant. He's a sort of...
When have we seen an English midfielder like him?
He's as much a sort of forward, like a sort of deep forward defensive player as he is an attacking player because he's got so much to his game. So you've got so much dynamism and security in that midfield just by putting him there. But you're right. I mean, I've been thinking about this. Maybe in terms of all-round ability, the last one you're thinking of is Steven Gerrard, maybe, but even then, I think he's dominant is a word that applies more to Bellingham than Gerrard.
I mean, there was that chat on the pitch, wasn't there, between Gerrard and Bellingham, that sort of mutual appreciation society. And when Gerrard was standing there saying to him, "You're miles better than I was at the same age," he wasn't lick-spittling.
What is good with Bellingham and the way Southgate is a bit more conservative. I think fundamentally he's a bit more conservative. I think people are quite cartoonish in their description of him, as you touched on. But because he does have that conservatism, he's going to look at Jude Bellingham and think, what are you good at? Everything. What do we need you to be really good at? This, do that.
Yeah.
And that's...
If you play Foden in the midfield with Bellingham, it inhibits...
It becomes a bit Harlem Globetrotters, doesn't it?
It
right,
does.
you do your thing on the ball, I'll do my thing on the ball.
Yeah, but it's like with Gerrard Lampard, you stick them all in. That's exactly what it does. I don't understand why people have this problem. We're not Spain 2010.
I think they have the problem. I think they have the problem because of teams like Spain. And
because of a team like Spain. There's no team
sorry. Because of that specific team like Spain.
Yeah.
And
Argentina were playing Rodrigo de Paul.
Yeah.
Because they had to, because they needed someone to do the heavy...
Well, Enzo plays further forward when he...
There you go.
He's allowed to be a runner
the
for
bleeding
midfield.
World Cup,
But I think that comes... But I think people need to realise that comes from people literally growing up through basically a boarding school type setup where they are playing that way.
Yeah.
Like we're not doing that in Solihull in Whitley Bay.
Yeah.
That it just isn't a thing. Yeah.
But I think as well, when you get these results, people want the success. So you think it doesn't quench the thirst. It makes you hungry and hungrier. And it's like, well, we beat North Macedonia 7-0. Right, well, next game 8-0.
Yeah.
I don't care who we're playing. And I think football fans often have very, very short memories with this kind of thing. But Phil Foden is a huge talent. He took his goal brilliantly, by the way. Okay, it was a tapping in one sense, but the composure, I think that's harsh if you were to, I don't know if Carl Walker clearly fancied another goal, didn't he? It was an effort.
He was on.
But he was incredible, by the way, Walker.
Walker's he just gets younger and younger. I don't know what he's...
It's the speed he's running at.
I don't know what they put in the water there.
It's in the first Superman film when he goes the other way around the world to spin the rotation, so he can bring Lewis Lane back to life. That's what Carl Walker's doing.
I think that's what he's doing. But so again, like if you want to pack that midfield with all the talent, it would give Rice a lot of work to do. It wouldn't. Don't think would fully get the best out of Bellingham. I think you could have a go, and maybe you do. But on that left side, again, like because Graham Souness in Puncher, I thought was very good. Went on about James Maddison a lot. And it's like, well, Rashford looked so dangerous.
Yeah.
You've got Grealish in there, who was a part of the treble-winning side. I know Phil Foden was as well. You can't play everybody.
No,
you just can't. You can't even get them all in the bloody squad.
That's the frustrating thing about international football, isn't it? It's a conversation that doesn't happen about club football.
Exactly,
it's a squad game in exactly the same way.
Totally. You're absolutely right. But yeah, I mean, so Foden, I think actually what Southgate said about Foden, he basically went, I refer you to Pep Guardiola's comments, which were, yes, he will play centrally as time goes on, but at the moment, his defensive work, or when he's off, not got the ball, there's a little bit of work to do, and Southgate doesn't have a lot of time. And so I have a sympathy there. Where my sympathy with Southgate is running a little bit thin is with Harry Maguire. And when I saw Maguire coming on, I did think, and I love Southgate, and I just thought, what are you doing, Gareth?
Pointless.
What's the point?
It's
What do you
pointless.
And
what do you learn from it?
But the thing is, Jim, I've defended Maguire as everybody, and laughed at me and so on. And I said, but what about his performances? And I do think Maguire's been a crucial player for England over the years. And Southgate clearly wants the old Harry Maguire there, even though people may not have rated him. But you can't argue with what he did, I think, in an England shirt previously. No. What he's done now is he in trying to kind of maybe get his confidence up, and maybe he's actually it's had the opposite effect,
and it's
exposed him massively. I mean,
it's not his job to give minutes to a player who has fallen out of favour at his club.
No.
And I am starting to wonder if if Southgate is maybe even unconsciously seeing parallels with his own situation with England, where he was getting pelters after Euro '96, and Harry Maguire is in this situation. Southgate said he's never seen. The exact quote was, "There has been a ridiculous treatment of him for a long time. It's a joke," and I agree with that. I do agree while with doing this podcast, we've ever seen a player who's been such a sort of lightning rod for criticism as Maguire. He's getting cheered onto the pitch by rival fans, which happened at the Emirates, and like Scotland did the same, and they were cheering his every touch.
Don't you think Southgate? Sorry, Jim. Don't you think Southgate's complicit in that? Because he's not taking him out of the firing line.
I agree with that point,
I think
I do agree
by
with
accident he's perhaps complicit in that because he's trying to sort of boost his confidence. But I think he clearly, it feels to me like he's looking at Maguire as someone who might be needed to start in the Euros. And when you've got players like Lewis Dunk, who had a brilliant game, Levi Colwill, who are in that squad on merit and might also be needed to partner John Stones, I think you could go as far as to say it's negligent to be giving minutes to somebody who is, let's be honest, unless they get a loan in January or there's a massive injury crisis at United that's worse than it already is, isn't very likely to play very often.
No.
Isn't in good form, let's be honest. Like it's not like this criticism has come from nowhere. The imperious Richard Jolly pointed out his last 2 goals are for Scotland and Sevilla. He's been making mistakes when he's played. He is not at the level that he was when he's achieved what he's achieved in an English shirt before. And you have to look at the reality of that. You've got to separate that from the criticism, which is over the top, but doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up very well, Jim. And I think we should mention Lewis Dunk because he came in and he looked like he'd had a lot of international caps, whereas that was only his second one.
I think that's the issue, really. All those players who you mentioned, Dunk, Cole, they're just all better players than
Maguire. And they have to get experience and there's limited opportunities for it.
And when does form become the reality of what you are?
But if you look
look, the way people speak about, some people speak about how people are involved with England. Like, let's not pretend that what Maguire's experienced is like Bobby Robson in 1990. It's not the same thing. And of course, there will be some idiots who take it too far. That is football. That is reality.
Yeah, but turning our attention on those
most people would just not want him in the team because honestly, his performances over the last 2 years, you would say,
but
have nowhere near merited it.
But Lewis Dunk, to me, if I know it's it's not like we need a so-called traditional English centre half. But Dunk would be a little more that Harry Maguire, because we know Maguire likes to, all the cliches, head the balls away and be on the injured ball and defend and all that sort of stuff, which of course any top flight defender can do.
He doesn't want the ball at his feet, though, does he?
Well, he's not at the moment. Clearly,
well, absolutely,
yeah, and I think
that's interesting,
and that's the problem. Whereas Dunk, as we were saying before, under De Zerbi has learned that. He was interviewed recently, and he was saying that I've learned, it took me a few weeks
he's
to kind of very adaptable, and he's come in there, and to me that's a kind of a more like for like replacement. You have a player who is experienced. He's not what is he, 30, 31 Dunk, something like that, and he's there, and he puts in a good performance like that. So I think England, where Southgate's conservatism has been is that often a 3-man defence, because he's been very aware of England's shortcomings defensively, whereas now I think he has, with going more for a 4-3-3 and so on, he's kind of like, let's play to our strengths here, which is clearly going forward. And I thought it was interesting, playing Rashford. He often plays Rashford in games where England are very much expected to win. We saw that against Wales in the World Cup as well. And I think Rashford is a real weapon, and I think Rashford has played really well for England and won't be a starter in the bigger games, which shows you the strength and depth England have in those positions. But this idea, again, that England are conservative. England's opening game of the World Cup, we've just gone and scored 6 goals, which is more than they did in tournaments under some managers.
I think, though, the idea is that he's more conservative against the tougher opponents, though, right?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Indeed. But, a very good performance, and, it was... Again, with this England side, in the games that they are meant to win, 9 times out of 10 they do, really. I know there's a few examples, Ukraine recently or Scotland and so on, but it's just, at the moment, being an England fan, it is pretty bloody. It's the best I've ever known.
It's going to be absolutely crushing in the summer, isn't it? Absolutely crushing.
Absolutely crushing.
The other thing I will say very quickly before we move off this topic is it's clear from the squad itself that the performances are quite self-policing. All the players know exactly what they have to bring, and off the back of the Ukraine game, to play like that, to talk as they've talked as well, to speak of this as they've spoken as well. I think it's really impressive. And I reiterate what you said. I don't remember when it was like this.
No. Norway beat Georgia 2-1, which means Scotland will have to wait until the next international break to secure qualification for the Euros. Scotland shouldn't forget this, Andy, because they are having a great time. And obviously, this is ultimately a friendly game.
You know what? They were so close. Did you see the ending to that? So, So it was 2-0 to Norway.
Yeah.
Georgia pulled one back in the first minute of stoppage time, 3 minutes of stoppage time. And with basically the last kick of the match, Kvisha Kvaratskhelia almost scored an absolute blinder. It was a really good save from Haaland. And yeah, Stanisol back and looked beyond relieved as he made his way off the pitch.
So Scotland can do it in their next game. Yeah.
Away in Spain.
Yeah.
And they've then got a friendly against France, have they not?
Is that right?
And then they start up again in November, away to Georgia.
Yeah.
And then their last qualifying game will be at home against Norway.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done exceptionally well. There's every chance it could go to the last game.
Come on.
But they've only got to finish in the top 2.
Yeah.
So
and also, they're
going to do it.
You're assuming that Norway are going to win all their games.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Scotland
obviously, results, but potentially it could be the most frustrating thing.
Oh, I mean, it would be
an all too familiar thing for some Scotland fans.
Well, I mean, John McGinn said, as we mentioned, I think it was on Ramble Reacts, only our wee country could mess it up from here.
I mean, Spain getting their mojo back, actually. I mean, they won 7-1 at Georgia at the weekend, 6-0 against Cyprus yesterday. I mean, them getting back into something approaching decent form, it definitely helps Scotland. There's no doubt about that, because it creates a gap between the top 2 and Norway, and it makes it almost hopeless for Norway to reach that top 2.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget what Scotland are doing. I know they've been hammered by England there, but England are a side who are talking about winning tournaments now. Scotland,
we've always been doing that, to be fair.
Legitimately now.
Realistically, yeah.
Realistically. Whereas Scotland, as I said before, I just find it, extraordinary that they have never gone past the first round of a tournament. This side could be the first side to do that. That's what you're talking, and it's not patronising at all. That's looking at the history of it and looking at what could be achieved and what I think they'll do. And of course, once you're in the knockouts, which you already are, Scotland, start celebrating it. You never know. 100% penalty shootout record, Scotland. Won't fear that. Decent, Andy. Decent. Before we go to a break, we have to talk about Jürgen Klinsmann's South Korea beating Roberto Mancini's Saudi Arabia at St James's Park in a 5:30 kickoff. Welcome to modern football, everybody. Klinsy got his first win 6 months after taking the job. It's been a good international break for Klinsmann. You've got to say he's been in the same country where his team has been playing, and 2 clean sheets and a win.
Yeah,
they are, Jim.
Off to the Maldives.
Andy, you live up in the northeast at the moment. Were a lot of your friends and family out there going to this game, leaving work early so they could get there for the 5:30 kickoff?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
But
after all they've done,
yeah. I was going to say
he deserved to be Grinsy Clinsy afterwards, didn't he?
Grinsy Clinsy.
Oh,
just sounds a bit seedy. That.
Yeah, indeed. I'd forgotten Roberto Mancini was in charge of Saudi Arabia.
They do like a handsome manager, don't they?
They do.
I mean, it's quite a tough gig taking over from Hervé Renard.
Where do you go after Renard?
I think probably that's why they started in the northeast of England, because it's like, well, if he's got his shirt buttoned up normally rather than down to halfway through his chest, he's got an excuse. He's like, well, I'm in Newcastle, I definitely need the scarf.
Mancini's lost both of his first games as manager since taking over from Big Harvey. A bit of pressure on his shoulders now, Andy.
Is there? I really don't think there is.
And that's the point I'm making. Let's go for a break. Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Right, it's book competition time. A reminder that you can win a copy of Andy Brassell's brand new book, We Play On. It's a modern history of Shakhtar Donetsk with unrivaled access to the club. To enter, all you have to do is submit a 5-star review of the show with a comment on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Then screenshot it and email us at show@footballramble.com with the subject line, book competition. Don't forget that subject line, book competition, by the way. We'll then email the 3 winners this Friday and you'll get your free copy delivered to you. Andy, it's a brilliant book.
Thanks.
Thought you'd agree. Righto. Let us start the second half with two teams who are in England's qualifying group for the Euros, of course. Italy 2, Ukraine 1. Italy now 6 points behind England in Group C with the game in hand. After Luciano Spalletti got his first win as Italy manager. Nice to see that bald beauty in the dugout, Jim.
Absolutely. It's also nice to see an international manager who's who's a name.
Yeah,
it's becoming
like
increasingly rare, isn't it? Indeed, like Hansi Flick, like Hansi Flick, and his potential replacement, who we will joyously come on to in a minute. Well, actually, it's a bit annoying, isn't it? You'd rather this was a draw, to be honest.
I know what you mean.
It could have been. I mean, Italy started brilliantly in this game. Davide Frattesi scored 2 in the first half hour, and Italy looked like they were going to absolutely run away with it. And then Ukraine got back into it. The crowd got a little bit anxious, and Italy, they were clearly the better team, but they were definitely hanging on towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm. Obviously, I want all the other teams in Europe to be as crap as possible for the Euros. Let's be absolutely clear about that. And when Spalletti took the job, I thought, bollocks.
He looks good in the FIGC blazer as well.
Looks great.
Very nice.
I know Italy. They're not as good as as they were when they won the Euros, but they're still Italy. They are still European champions technically. And now Spalletti's there, Vish. You would imagine they would have a bit more of something about them.
Yeah, although you imagine, I wonder what he'd be like kind of come the Euros in terms of like Mancini's side in 2021 felt a bit like, you know what, let's have a bit of fun.
Yeah,
let's have a bit of fun here. And obviously Spalletti is known for being, incredibly tactically astute, really keen on the finer points.
All about the system.
Yeah, do you get enough time to do that?
Let's hope not.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
I think not qualifying for 2 successive World Cups will do it for you in terms of getting a little bit of time.
It's extraordinary recent history with Italy.
It's totally bizarre. It's unparalleled in international football. Really,
they deserve it.
They deserve it.
They ruined our special day.
They did.
They were really good in Euro 2020.
They
but
were very good.
At the same time, the football they played was brave and out of step with a lot of the way that modern international football tournaments are won, which is what made it so eye-catching. But they were still a work in progress. They still didn't really have a centre forward. A bit like, I mean, this is a different situation, but a bit like when they won the World Cup in 2006.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a proper centre forward that they could rely on. And the funny thing is, having got to that point and almost won a major tournament too early, because Mancini did great work and they were going in the right direction, but it didn't feel tournament win sort of time. But they never really built on that. And now they're all work in progressy again and a little bit behind where they were.
I wish
in
England would
2021.
win a tournament too early. Can't come early enough for me.
Well, no, it's not too early now. I think that's the whole point. They're kind of peaking like Germany 2014.
But you say that about Italy.
Next year is going to be England's Germany 2014 World Cup.
Here we go. Like the 2006 World Cup, Andy. Come on. Behave yourself.
Oh, no, I was never saying that.
But by the way, with regards to Italy, you're saying you're right. But I mean, it was semi-final, final, 2 penalty shootouts. It wasn't that expansive. In the semi-final, they were a bit fortunate to get through.
They played expansive football, but they were a bit lucky as well, as you have to be to win a tournament.
As you've got to be to win a tournament. One of their men, one of the Italian men that we all know very well, is brilliant bloke Leonardo Bonucci, who's reportedly set to take legal action against Juventus after being frozen out in the summer.
Now, one of his lawyers is called Antonio Conte. I'm fairly confident it's not that one, but I'm not 100% sure. It makes you think, doesn't it? Like, even without any legal training, you think, you know what? I think he might put a convincing, case for the defence in essentially any situation.
To be fair, Conte would do anything to get at Juventus these days. Anything.
When
he would train legally to get at Juventus.
When you watch a show about lawyers, whether it's like Suits or I don't know, Ali
Another
McBeal.
one.
Yeah.
Ali McBeal.
McBeal.
That's one of his references.
That's the only one I can think of.
I have never seen an episode of Ali McBeal.
But
I will now.
It's just
Judge Judy.
It's
Better
overly.
Call Saul.
Well, that, yeah. But it's overly dramatic. There's stuff always happening. You're like, this is clearly not an accurate reflection of what it's like to work in the legal profession.
Yeah.
Unless you represent Juventus.
There you go.
They're never out of court, are they?
They love it. They absolutely love it.
outrageous.
They've built
They've got to validate for parking every day.
They've got their own court in their stadium.
Imagine that. So just chasing up on that invoice. It still hasn't come in. Any time soon? Do you reckon, Juventus? Are you gonna?
Yeah, we'll play.
Now I'm going to sue you. No, don't sue us. So you have to represent us suing you or being sued by you. It doesn't work.
It's an extraordinary situation, but one we're very keen to see what happens. Germany 2, France 1. Didn't see that coming. Germany won their first game after Hansi Flick sacking. So yeah, new manager bounce in the form of Rudi Völler. Nice to see him on the touchline. Of course.
He was having a great time there on the touchline, really enjoying himself.
Wow, you would, wouldn't you?
Did he still have the bouncy hair? Like, was his hair bouncing when he was jumping around?
Well, what's left of it is bouncing.
I was going to say.
Yes.
Still a bit of spittle from.
Oh,
my God.
Is that Brill cream now? Yeah. I mean, look, this is, for what it's worth, a much-needed win for Germany. They needed something. And, beating France is no mean feat, although it is just a friendly.
And it was quite a changed France side.
As was the France side in the World Cup due to injury, and they still got the final.
Yeah.
But Thomas Muller, he rolled back the years, scoring a nice one indeed, yeah. Antoine Griezmann played in his 80th consecutive game for France. The man goes on and on.
He's brilliant.
Yes.
How do you think he's going to be remembered, within French football? Because I feel like he flies under the radar in terms of, he can do everything, and but chooses to
I think in France he'll probably perhaps seen what he's done for the national team differently to maybe outside of Europe, where he played for Atletico, where under Simeone you're never going to be that eye-catching because the football was a little bit more functional. Say, moved to Barcelona, it just didn't really work out, and so on. So I think had he have had a period at Barcelona, maybe in the wider context, I don't know, but Andy, you'd probably know.
Yeah,
more.
I mean, if you think he was the best player in a home tournament in Euro 2016, their best player at the last World Cup as well. Yes, I know Mbappe scored a hat-trick in the final, but Griezmann was fantastic in that World Cup. He was perfect at 2018 as well.
Won the cup, yeah.
And I think it's interesting. He's a little bit like and I know he admires him greatly. He's a little bit like French David Beckham, really, because he's someone who's sort of very eye-catching and celebrity off the pitch. Sometimes
and does he have a huge celebrity profile in France?
Yeah, I mean, he did the voice of Superman in the Lego Batman film.
Can you imagine if Beckham did the voice of Superman?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
kryptonite. No. Right, I'm off. Carry on, Andy.
So I think you look at that and it's
got about a phone call. She's got to strip off. I'll put my pants on the.
Lois, have I got a knighthood yet?
Super, sir. I just want to be super, sir.
Oh, that'd be Qatar calling. Right, Andy, come on, hurry up.
Why is my kid flying in circles? Leave Brooklyn Kent alone.
I think when you juxtapose his celebrity status to what he actually is on the pitch, which is the most hardworking player for his team, I think that's the interesting thing. He's often judged by his celebrity rather than what he is on the field.
But that would be more latter Beckham, because Beckham at the times he was the best player in the England team.
Also, Griezmann has so much more charisma than Beckham. Surely, part of this celebrity.
But I don't think Andy was saying.
No. But what I'm saying is, surely part of his celebrity is based on the fact that he's got a great personality, certainly a great public-facing image. Because I don't know, I've always regarded him as quite charming.
But looks and hair as well come into it. Vish.
He does manage to make himself look like a dickhead much more than David Beckham.
He has done that,
which is charming. We like that.
Yeah, we do like that. Well, anyway, he'll be there at the Euros next summer, pulling the strings in that French side.
Yeah,
that terrifying French side. But what about Germany, though? That's where the story really is at the moment for one of the biggest sides in Europe, definitely one of the biggest international sides ever. They are managerless technically. I don't know if Voller's on the bench, but they need someone to come in, really.
No, they're very managerless, yeah.
Yeah. And quite magnificently, Felix Magath has thrown his hat into the ring. I'd forgot that he even had a hat at this point. But yes, he thinks he's the best man for the job. He said, I don't know what requirements the DFB have created for this position, but in my opinion, it is very clear in football now, urgently, we need someone who can put this completely insecure team back together, which is no longer able to match its performance. And Dietmar Hamann waded in saying, we now need someone with authority, experience and backbone. I would therefore do everything in my power. How much power have you got in this situation, Didi? To bring Felix Magath or Matthias Sammer to the DFB. This is great because this is the kind of conversation we were having here like 15 years ago with Capello.
I just want to
10 years
check,
ago, whatever it was.
Andy, you're the sort of European football head in the jar here. Is this the German equivalent of Give It Big Sam?
Yeah.
Is this what
Big
this
Sam
is?
and Capello vibes?
More so.
Yes!
I mean, the last time Felix Magath had a job, he was sporting director of like a third-tier team.
So this is unprompted, isn't it? This is him going, consider me. No one's actually thinking
Oh, yes.
about it.
This is.
We're not going to live that dream.
This is very unprompted.
Harman's on board, and so are we. We back the bid. Definitely. Give him 4 years and then give him 4 more. Because honestly, that is the best news that we could have.
But
As a country.
us maybe, yeah. I don't know. Like, if you thought that was even a faint possibility as a Germany player, you would genuinely be shitting it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Can you imagine what training would be like for these like pampered superstars? Remember, like if we can just relive a couple of Felix Magath's greatest hits, taking the Wolfsburg players for a mini marathon through a forest and then pouring their water away in front of them.
Oh my God.
Rubbing the cheese.
Yeah. Cheese on thighs?
I mean that's not. Like,
That was at Fulham.
Yeah, that was Breda Hangeland, wasn't it?
Breda Hangeland.
But I mean that's not completely spirit crushing. That's just a bit weird.
I know, but it's
Bread and cheese.
There you go. Why did nobody say that until now? The best moment of clarity they've had, and thank goodness it was on the pod.
The thing about Magath as well, which I don't think would really work, is I know they're beaten on the weekend, but in that game, Leroy Sané had moments of like, I know he's a bit older now in his late 20s, but he had moments of like, why aren't you close to being the best player in the world?
Yeah, he's had a really barnstorming start to the season, hasn't he?
Yeah, and you kind of think like, actually, why don't Germany just unleash the bloke?
Oh, come on. You're sounding a lot like anti-Felix Magath here.
But yeah, which is what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I feel like I'm like Will Smith in iRobot when I watch someone like Sané, because I'm like, you should be like, we should be talking about you.
That's absolutely right. But a lot of the discourse around him is, why don't you defend more when we've not got the ball? Which I think
punchable
is
offence in Germany, isn't it?
I think if you want to remedy that in the short term, Felix Magath's your man, definitely.
Oh, big time.
I mean, do you remember Jefferson Farfan famously said, who had him at Schalke, said,
here we go.
Said, I would genuinely rather give up football and go back to working in a mine in Peru than play for him again.
Yeah.
What a line that is.
Well, perhaps Germany, whoever they pick, they might want to take a leaf out of India coach Igor Stimac's book, of course, former Croatian player, former West Ham and Derby County man.
Yeah.
It emerged this week that India's national team manager, Igor, reportedly consulted an astrologer to choose his team for several important games last year. A little bit Ramon Domenech going on here. I quite like that because it's nonsense and it's not England. So 48 hours before they faced Afghanistan in a big Asian Cup qualifier, Stimac messaged the astronomer, and 2 big names in the India team missed the game because their stars weren't favourable.
Yeah, it comes at a time where there's a lot of campaigning from within India and within football in India to change the law that means players who are of Indian heritage are eligible for the national team, because India is quite different from a lot of places in that they don't do that. And there's a lot of players, good players, playing in Europe and elsewhere who could represent the national team if they came in line with the laws that most countries use.
Right.
And this comes at a pivotal moment, and this sort of woo-woo nonsense isn't helpful, is it? It's not helpful. It's the last thing you need when you're looking at your situation. A country with over 1 billion people in it who could be a force, and you got this guy going, no, but he is a Virgo.
Yeah. I wish you were the head of an FA, Jim, because that kind of this kind of woo-woo nonsense, is, just get it out.
I'm not sure I'd be that popular.
Yeah,
I would say that somebody who grew up Hindu, there's a lot of woo nonsense that comes into, say, picking a married partner.
Right.
So Yeah, if they're gonna go by astrology for picking someone to spend the rest of your life with, I can understand why they're doing it to pick a left back.
Yeah. Okay. So you endorse this?
I would say no, as someone who didn't go down that route, and would discourage plenty of people from going down that route.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of marriage. I would also say there's better ways of picking your left back.
What could Southgate learn something here? Would this make him more adventurous?
Well, it would mean if they really went the whole hog, it would mean things like having kickoffs at 4 a.m. because it's an auspicious time.
I see.
So I would say no because I do not want to cover that.
Should he at least
imagine if we had to do a Ramble Reacts at like 8 a.m.? It'd be ridiculous.
It would be. Should he at least have a chat to Russell Grant? Is all I'm saying.
Maybe you should. Yeah.
A very old reference there, everybody. We're going to move on quickly. Let's go back to Europe. Portugal 9, Luxembourg 0. An absolute gubbing for those sorry Luxembourgian slugs.
Just picture Ronaldo sat in his golden house using Fabergé eggs as a stress ball. Furious at this happening without him.
I know. I saw that and I thought, oh, Ronaldo, he hasn't. It was 2-0 or 3-0. He hasn't scored. He said, oh, he's not in the team. Oh, dear. Oh, he's going to be pissed off.
Suspended, of course.
Yes, indeed.
So, I mean, when you pick up that booking away at Slovakia, and really it could have been a red card because after he committed it was a really terrible first touch, which ended up with him accidentally kicking the goalkeeper in the face. So he kind of got away with only getting a yellow. When he sat down afterwards, I mean, if there'd have been Portuguese Jeff Shreves, he would have said, "How do you feel about missing the following game against Luxembourg?" Because it's all about the numbers. Now Luxembourg are better than they used to be. Yeah, they really weren't in this game.
Well, Portugal actually have been really good in qualification.
Yeah.
They've won 6 qualifiers since Roberto Martinez took over from Fernando Santos, and despite winning the Euro,
the goal difference is mad.
Well,
as well.
The goal difference is there, and I want to ask you about Portugal, Andy, because Fernando Santos is obviously,
doing terribly with Poland, ruining your Friday bet.
All that, yeah, indeed. I was not happy with that. He's got a bit of a Gil from The Simpsons kind of vibe, as we've talked about before, but did win the Euros in very, very stodgy fashion, but he bloody well got Portugal a major trophy and the UEFA Nations League, 2 major trophies.
You can stodge a Euros, can't you?
Of course you
Greece
can.
did it.
Of course you can.
Can't really do it with the World Cup.
Yeah.
You can stodge a Euro.
That's why I want us to just
stodge the hell out of it.
Got to just get there.
That's Gaz's plan.
All right, Andy, that's too far. But Santos,
really
so he was a very unpopular character when he left. Right.
Yeah.
Martinez, a Spaniard coming in to manage Portugal, I know a couple of Portuguese, and they were a bit like, hang on, what's this? Not on the sole basis of that, but there was.
Yeah, it wasn't on the sole basis of him being Spanish that they weren't excited about it.
Indeed,
I was going to say that's being very generous to Roberto Martinez.
I think Martinez is harshly derided sometimes.
I think he looks like both Bert and Ernie at once.
Exactly, which is a great selling point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm just going to let that just sit for a moment there.
Even bits of the names within his name.
Even in my head, the clothes.
Well,
how does that work?
I think, maybe, I don't know. I was going to say that they were based on him, but clearly that's not the case. He's not that old. But
well, we have to base someone on this character. Well, ideally 2.
Yeah. Well, I think that after that bombshell, we have to say that Martinez, they're having a good time under him.
He's pretty decent at international level.
Look, indeed, I thought
with good teams.
Well, with a Belgian side,
he really improved Belgium.
Yes,
really improved Belgium, and his fingerprints were all over that quarter-final win in the World Cup against Brazil.
Yeah, that was
when he changed Lukaku's position.
Totally. So why were they not? Why were they unhappy with him taking over there?
Well, people always expect you to, get Pep Guardiola or some.
Well, they've got big coaches from Portugal. Mourinho being the obvious one.
Sure. I mean, I think when you go for an overseas coach when you're Portugal,
he's not overseas. There's a land border there.
I'm not.
Come on, know your geography.
You're being a dickhead there. Don't have a go at him.
Oh dear.
I'm not convinced there's a massive excuse for it because obviously Portugal, as far as coaches go, is a very educated nation. But having said that, he is a good international coach. But people expect a massive name, and when you have, it's like when Gareth Southgate got the England job.
Yeah.
If you've had a failure or two at club level, or you haven't really done much at club level, people are like,
I'll be honest with you.
I think there's a less understanding than there should be Well, the fact that it's completely different.
If Southgate had stepped down after the World Cup and Martinez was available, I guarantee the FA would have spoken to him, and I wouldn't have been against that personally.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen, and we've still got gorgeous Gareth. But how well can Portugal do in the Euros? Because he's got some names in that side.
Well, I think, again, it was the Gonzalo Ramos
he's
moment.
unreal.
A little bit like, and he's going to be nice and fresh because he ain't going to play that much for PSG over the next year. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But
well, shouldn't be playing for the team then, Andy, should he? According to some people.
I think you look at the fact that every time he steps in for Cristiano Ronaldo, it just massively improves them. And, of course, it allows it to be Bruno Fernandes's team.
Yeah, it does. I quite like the fact that the Luxembourg manager, Luke Holtz, stormed down the tunnel when the 8th goal went in. Right, that's it.
It was ridiculous. You thought, for a minute, you thought, is he, like, going to the toilet or whatever? You know, there's only 5 minutes left. I'm sure he could have held it.
That's taking the piss.
They played the same song after every goal.
Oh, my days.
You know that he heard it in the dressing room a 9th time and just like, are you kidding me?
We get to double figures. I'm going to batter the lot of you. I hate to think what he was holding when they came back in.
Top off, just ready to go.
That reminds me of, I can't remember who it was. I think it was when Stuart Pearce or maybe Mark Hughes was Man City manager, and they were playing at Stamford Bridge, and he went. The referee blow the full the halftime whistle. Hughes went down the tunnel and was in the changing room, and when Sylvain Distin or a defender got back, who at halftime was remonstrating about the referee about a decision to such an extent that he got a second yellow card and got sent off, and so. The manager didn't know he'd been sent off, so we had to tell him, and he said it was the scariest conversation he was ever had. As he was walking his home, like, fucking hell, he's going to be through the roof.
Blimey. Let's end with some chat about Greece. They made an unbelievable blunder on Sunday. Gus Poyet, the manager, he formerly of Chelsea, of course, and others, left Liverpool's Kostas Tsimikas and 2 other players out of his squad for their game against Gibraltar after they thought that those players were suspended for picking up yellows against the Netherlands last Thursday. Now, players need to pick up 3 consecutive yellow cards to be banned for a game now, not 2 like it has been in the past. So Poyet left out, Tsimikas, who presumably is one of their better players, and a couple of others, unnecessarily. And the Greek Football Association released a statement apologising, but said the decision had no practical consequence as they beat Gibraltar 5-0. So an interesting situation there. That it was a terrible admin blunder, but they were like, but don't worry about it because we still hammered them.
So one of those things that
ends well.
Will get pinned on Gus Poyet, even though it's clearly got nothing to do with him.
Yeah. Poor old Gus. And he found out when he was on Match of the Day.
A couple of goals there at West Ham for Konstantinos Mavropanos.
There you go. Was that West Ham fan there who went to Ghana to watch Kudus play?
I hope so.
Is he doing the international round? Did you see this story when a West Ham United fan turned up in Ghana to watch one of their... Was it against Central African Republic they were playing? So. And Kudus actually scored in that
AFCON
game.
qualifier, I think.
That was, something like that. Whatever it was a big trip for him to go there. So maybe he's just keeping an eye on all the hammers abroad.
That's that's a great idea.
Yeah,
you'd have so much fun doing that.
You would.
Agreed.
You absolutely would. Well, you could have gone and seen Bruno Fernandes. You'd have seen 9-0 if you'd have gone.
Yeah. Nice to see him happy.
That's for
it's
a change.
Not. It's really not.
Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Acast Creator Network. Tomorrow we're dropping a special segment from On the Continent right into those ears of yours. So do check that out because it'll be rather enjoyable. Patreon subscribers, of course, don't go anywhere. Keep listening for Ramble Uncut. And if you're not signed up yet, go to our Patreon by hitting the link in the show notes. Also follow us on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Football Ramble. And didn't forget to subscribe on your podcast app. We've done it again, everybody. Another pod in the can, Andy. Lovely old job.
Hooray.
There we are. Pleasure. Well done, England. And well done, Andy Brassel.
Well done yourself, Spells.
Yeah, you've had a really good game.
Well done, Jim Campbell.
Thank you, mate.
Well done, Vitushan Hantaraja.
Thank you.
And well done, Greece. See you soon.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.